Actor Malcolm-Jamal Warner, widely known for starring in the hit TV sitcom The Cosby Show, has died.
Malcolm-Jamal Warner has died at 54. America's beloved Theo Huxtable, swept away by a rip current while on vacation with his family. But for Regina King, this news carried a weight that few could understand.
Grief is a journey, you know. I understand that grief is love that has no place to go.
This was the man who had broken her heart in the cruelest way possible. She had every reason to stay silent, to let others mourn while protecting her own peace. Instead, she did something that stunned Hollywood. She wrote him a tribute. So, let's get into it. In the golden age of 1980s television, two young black actors were simultaneously making history on NBC's must-see TV lineup, though they wouldn't fully understand the significance of their paths crossing until decades later. Malcolm-Jamal Warner was 13 when he landed the role that would define his career. Theo Huxtable, the lovably mischievous son of America's favorite television family. The Cosby Show premiered in September 1984 and immediately revolutionized how black families were portrayed on television. Warner, with his infectious smile and natural charisma, became the teenage heartthrob of a generation.
Look, they'll be here any minute. This my shirt?
That's right.
Thanks.
Hey.
Meanwhile, just a few miles away on another NBC soundstage, 11-year-old Regina King was making her own mark as Brenda Jenkins on 227. The sitcom, which ran from 1985 to 1990, showcased life in a Washington, D.C. apartment building and gave King her first taste of the entertainment industry's complexities.
Hey, do we have anybody interesting in our family?
What brought that up?
Both shows were part of NBC's Thursday night powerhouse lineup, and the young actors would occasionally cross paths at network events, award shows, and industry gatherings. But they were children then, focused on homework between takes and navigating the unique pressures of growing up in the public eye.
We saw a family who were funny without trying to be black, without using, the humor was not predicated upon how hard it is to be black in America.
Warner understood early that he was part of something bigger than entertainment. The Cosby Show wasn't just a sitcom, it was cultural medicine, healing decades of stereotypical portrayals of black families on television. The pressure was immense for a teenager, but it also instilled in him a deep sense of purpose and responsibility. King, too, was learning about representation and its power. 227 may not have had the cultural impact of The Cosby Show, but it was equally important in showing black women as complex, multifaceted characters dealing with real-life issues. At 11, she was already displaying the emotional intelligence and depth that would later make her one of Hollywood's most respected actresses. Their childhoods in the industry created a unique bond that wouldn't fully manifest until they were adults. They understood the specific challenges of being young, black, and successful in Hollywood. The constant scrutiny, the pressure to be role models, the difficulty of forming genuine relationships when everyone wanted something from you. By the early 1990s, both actors were transitioning from child stars to adult performers, a notoriously difficult journey that has derailed countless careers. Warner continued with The Cosby Show until its conclusion in 1992, while King moved on to film roles and more mature television projects. They would remain aware of each other throughout the 1990s and 2000s, two successful alumni of the NBC family, occasionally crossing paths at industry events. Warner went on to star in Malcolm and Eddie, alongside comedian Eddie Griffin, while King built an impressive resume with roles in films like Boys and the Hood and Jerry Maguire, plus the television series Southland. But it wasn't until 2011, more than 25 years after they first met as children, that the universe would align to bring them together romantically. By then, Both had experienced the full spectrum of Hollywood's highs and lows. Warner had navigated the challenges of transitioning from teen heartthrob to serious adult actor. King had survived a difficult divorce from Ian Alexander Sr. in 2007 and was raising their son, Ian Alexander Jr., as a single mother. The timing, as King would later reflect, was everything. They were no longer the wide-eyed children who had once shared NBC soundstages. They were grown adults who understood the industry's realities, their own worth, and what they wanted from a relationship. The foundation built in their youth, that shared understanding of fame's unique pressures, would become the bedrock of something beautiful and complicated. When Regina King and Malcolm-Jamal Warner's romantic relationship became public in 2011, it felt like the universe had finally corrected a cosmic oversight. Here were two people who had been orbiting each other for decades, finally finding their way into the same gravitational pull. The relationship didn't happen overnight. After King's divorce from Ian Alexander Sr. in 2007, she had been deliberately cautious about dating. As a single mother with a thriving career, she wasn't interested in casual relationships or Hollywood flings. She needed someone who understood her priorities. Her son came first, her career was non-negotiable, and any man in her life had to enhance rather than complicate her carefully constructed world. Warner, too, had been selective about his relationships. After the tragic death of his Cosby Show co-star and girlfriend Michelle Thomas in 1998, he had been in a long-term relationship with actress Karen Molina White that lasted 7 years. By 2011, he was ready for something serious, something real. Their reconnection began naturally through mutual friends and industry events. The spark was immediate, but both were mature enough to take things slowly. They understood that their shared history, those formative years as child actors, created a unique bond that couldn't be rushed or forced. The early days of their relationship were characterized by deep conversations and genuine compatibility. Warner was particularly drawn to King's strength as a single mother. He had always wanted children and was impressed by how she balanced her demanding career with raising Ian Jr. King, meanwhile, appreciated Warner's maturity and emotional intelligence. He wasn't intimidated by her success or trying to compete with her achievements. During a 2012 BET interview, he said, "I think Regina and I are both of the philosophy that we keep our private lives private. All relationships go through all kinds of peaks and valleys. We like to protect what we have because it's very special and very precious. But I will say that it's a relationship that makes all the sense in the world." By early 2012, they had moved in together. Warner welcomed King's teenage son into their shared home, creating a blended family that felt natural and right. Friends described them as incredibly compatible. Two people who genuinely enjoyed each other's company and shared similar values about family, career, and personal growth. For nearly 2 years, they built something beautiful together. They talked about marriage, about having children together, about the future they were creating. Warner bonded with Ian Jr., becoming a father figure during crucial teenage years. King supported Warner's artistic pursuits, including his music and poetry. But even as they were building their life together, cracks were beginning to show. The pressure of two high-profile careers, the challenges of blending a family, and perhaps most significantly, different visions of their future were creating tension beneath the surface of their seemingly perfect relationship. By late 2012, those close to the couple noticed changes. They were spending more time apart due to work commitments. The easy companionship that had characterized their early relationship was being tested by the realities of their demanding careers and different life goals. Neither could have predicted how suddenly and devastatingly it would all end. March 2013 was supposed to be a month of new beginnings for Regina King and Malcolm-Jamal Warner. Instead, it became the month that shattered what many considered one of Hollywood's most stable and genuine relationships. The end came without warning, at least from King's perspective. After nearly 2 years of what seemed like a solid, committed relationship, Warner made a decision that would leave King reeling and questioning everything she thought she knew about the man she loved. The breakup wasn't just sudden, it was brutal in its finality. According to sources close to the situation, Warner didn't just end the relationship. He asked King and her teenage son to move out of the home they had been sharing. King was devastated. Friends described her as brokenhearted and completely blindsided by Warner's decision. She had believed they were building something permanent together. They had talked about marriage, about having children together, about the life they were creating as a blended family. But the most painful detail of their breakup wouldn't be revealed until 2 years later, when King gave an interview that exposed just how callous Warner's timing had been. She said, "Someone broke up with me on Valentine's. Yeah, I'm serious. Then he actually sent me flowers that said, 'I still love you,' and I threw the flowers in the trash, and he was upset that I threw them in the trash, and I was like, F you." Valentine's Day, 2013. The day dedicated to love and romance became the day Warner chose to end their relationship. The cruelty of the timing was staggering, not just breaking up with someone on Valentine's Day, but then compounding the insult by sending flowers with a note saying, "I still love you." King's response was visceral and completely understandable. She threw the flowers in the trash. But Warner, incredibly, was upset by her reaction to his mixed messages. The audacity of ending a 2-year relationship on Valentine's Day and then expecting gratitude for flowers was almost breathtaking in its emotional tone-deafness. The public revelation of these details wouldn't come until 2015, but in March 2013, rumors were already swirling about the breakup. The entertainment media, which had largely respected their privacy during their relationship, suddenly turned their attention to the split. Faced with mounting speculation and increasingly inaccurate reports about the circumstances of their breakup, King took to X to address the situation directly, saying, "Hey everybody, please don't believe everything you read. Me and Malcolm-Jamal Warner are good. Life happens. Forward motion, Godspeed." The tweet was classic Regina King, dignified, gracious, and protective of both their reputations. Even in her pain, she was trying to minimize the public scrutiny and preserve some semblance of privacy around their personal business. The phrase, "life happens," carried the weight of someone trying to make sense of a devastating loss while maintaining her composure in public. But those close to King knew the truth. She was struggling to understand how someone she had loved and trusted could have handled the end of their relationship so poorly. The aftermath of the breakup was complicated by their continued presence in the same industry. They couldn't avoid each other completely. They attended the same events, moved in the same circles, and had mutual friends and colleagues. King handled these encounters with remarkable grace, always maintaining her professionalism even when dealing with personal pain. But the impact of how their relationship ended would linger for years. King, who had been open to love and committed to building a future with Warner, became more guarded about relationships. The experience taught her that even people you've known for decades, people who share your history and understand your journey, can still surprise you in the most painful ways. The Valentine's Day breakup became a defining moment for King, not just in terms of her relationship with Warner, but in her understanding of her own strength and resilience. She had survived the end of her marriage, built a successful career as a single mother, and navigated the complexities of Hollywood with grace and dignity. She would survive this too, but the scars would remain. In the aftermath of their painful breakup, Regina King and Malcolm-Jamal Warner began the difficult process of rebuilding their lives separately while maintaining the professional courtesy required by their continued presence in the same industry. For King, the period following March 2013 was one of intense focus on her career and her son. The woman who had once spoken hopefully about the universe's plan for her and Warner now threw herself into work with renewed determination. She took on challenging roles that showcased her range and depth as an actress, refusing to let personal heartbreak derail her professional momentum. Meanwhile, Warner was also moving forward, though he remained notably private about his personal life. He continued his work on various television projects and began exploring his artistic interests in music and poetry more seriously. But he couldn't completely escape questions about his past relationship with King, particularly as both their careers continued to flourish. Warner's comments suggested he believed they had moved past the pain of their breakup, but his perspective seemed somewhat removed from the reality of how his actions had affected King. His focus on the media coverage rather than the emotional impact revealed a disconnect that may have been part of what ended their relationship in the first place. Despite the awkwardness of their history, both maintained professional respect for each other's work. When King won her historic Emmy Award in September 2015 for Outstanding Supporting Actress in a limited series for American Crime, Warner publicly congratulated her on X. The tweet was gracious and genuine, suggesting that whatever personal issues had ended their relationship, Warner still respected King's talent and achievements. As the years passed, both actors continued to evolve personally and professionally. King's career reached new heights with her Academy Award win for If Beale Street Could Talk in 2019 and her acclaimed directorial work on projects like One Night in Miami. She became known not just as a talented actress, but as a powerful voice for social justice and equality in Hollywood. Warner, meanwhile, found success in recurring roles on shows like The Resident and continued to pursue his passion for music and spoken word poetry. In 2015, he even won a Grammy Award for Best Traditional R&B Performance for his contribution to Jesus Children of America with Robert Glasper Experiment and Lala Hathaway. By 2019, King had reached a place of contentment with her single status, suggesting that the pain of her relationship with Warner had taught her valuable lessons about what she needed from a partner. She was no longer willing to compromise her peace of mind for the sake of being in a relationship. Around this same time, Warner was beginning his most serious relationship since King. Though he kept the details extremely private, he had met the woman who would become his wife and the mother of his daughter. The relationship represented a fresh start for Warner, an opportunity to apply whatever lessons he had learned from his previous relationships.
So when people say, when you know, that's what that feeling is. Mm-hmm. And I had always heard that. And being in long-term relationships for so much of my life, I always felt like, okay, that's a cool concept. But I had that experiential knowledge of when you know, and it's just like, this is it.
King, meanwhile, faced her own personal tragedy in 2022 when her son, Ian Alexander Jr., died by suicide at age 26. The loss was devastating, and King largely stepped back from public appearances to grieve and heal. The entertainment industry rallied around her during this difficult time, including, presumably, Warner, though any private communications between them remained exactly that, private.
Is a journey, you know. I understand that grief is love that has no place to go.
King's profound loss added new depth to her understanding of love, loss, and resilience. The woman who had once been heartbroken by a Valentine's Day breakup had now faced the ultimate tragedy, the loss of her child. It put everything in perspective, including her past relationship with Warner. By 2024, both actors had found their separate paths to happiness and fulfillment. King was slowly returning to work, channeling her grief into meaningful projects. Warner was enjoying married life and fatherhood while continuing his diverse career in entertainment. They had both grown and changed since their time together, becoming different people than they were during those intense 2 years from 2011 to 2013. Neither could have imagined that tragedy would soon bring their stories back together in the most heartbreaking way possible. July 20th, 2025 began as an ordinary Sunday for most of the world, but it would end as one of the most devastating days in entertainment history. Malcolm-Jamal Warner, beloved by millions as Theo Huxtable and respected throughout the industry for his artistic versatility and kind heart, was enjoying what should have been a peaceful family vacation in Costa Rica. The details of what happened at Playa Cocos in Limon Province are both simple and heartbreaking. Warner was swimming with his family when he was caught in a powerful rip current. Despite the desperate efforts of bystanders who pulled him from the water and the immediate response of Costa Rican Red Cross paramedics, Warner could not be revived. He was pronounced dead at the scene, the victim of asphyxia by drowning. He was just 54 years old. The news broke slowly, then spread like wildfire through social media and entertainment news outlets. Malcolm-Jamal Warner dead at 54 became the headline that no one wanted to believe. The boy who had grown up in America's living rooms, the man who had continued to entertain and inspire for decades, was gone. For Regina King, the news must have felt like another devastating blow in a life that had already been marked by profound loss. Just 3 years after losing her son, Ian Jr., she was now mourning the death of another significant person from her past, the man she had once planned to build a future with. The entertainment industry immediately began sharing memories and tributes. Bill Cosby, despite his own controversies, spoke emotionally about losing his television son. Raven Simonet posted a tearful audio message calling Warner the Big Brother and a beacon. Magic Johnson shared memories of their conversations about basketball, life, and business. But it was Regina King's response that carried the most weight, given their complicated history and the depth of their past connection. 24 hours after the news broke, King shared 2 posts on her Instagram stories that would serve as her public farewell to the man who had once been the love of her life. The first post, accompanied by a photo of Warner riding a motorcycle with pure joy on his face, captured everything about their relationship: the love, the loss, the complexity, and ultimately, the respect that had survived everything that came between them. Some people leave a lasting imprint, not just for who they were, but for the energy they carried. I'm sending prayers filled with love and understanding to your family and loved ones. Rest easy, Malcolm-Jamal Warner. The second post was simpler, but equally meaningful. Another motorcycle photo, this one showing Warner with his hand raised in triumph, accompanied by just 3 words: Ride in Power. It was a play on the traditional Rest in Power, but personalized to reflect Warner's love of motorcycles and his free spirit. The choice of photos was deeply personal. While others shared publicity shots or red carpet photos, King chose images that captured Warner's joy and freedom. Moments when he was purely himself, not performing for cameras or audiences. These were the moments she wanted to remember and share with the world. The tribute was all the more remarkable considering the circumstances of their breakup. King could have chosen to remain silent or offer only a perfunctory statement. Instead, she used her platform to celebrate Warner's life and express genuine grief for his family's loss. King's approach to honoring her son's memory had clearly informed how she chose to remember Warner. Rather than focusing on the painful aspects of their relationship, she honored the totality of who he was: his talent, his energy, his impact on her life and the lives of others. The final chapter of Regina King and Malcolm-Jamal Warner's story wasn't the romantic ending many had hoped for when their relationship began in 2011, but it was something perhaps more profound, a demonstration of how love can evolve and endure even after romantic relationships end. King's tribute showed that despite heartbreak, despite disappointment, despite the passage of time, the fundamental appreciation for who someone is as a person can survive everything. In death, Warner received the kind of universal love and recognition that had sometimes eluded him in life. His former Cosby Show family, his colleagues from various projects, and his ex-girlfriends all came forward to celebrate his life and mourn his passing. But perhaps no tribute carried more weight than Regina King's, because it came from someone who had seen him at his best and his worst, who had loved him deeply and been hurt profoundly by him, and who chose, in the end, to remember the light he brought to the world. Anyway, that's it for this video, folks. Bye.